Well, internal party politics, specifically of the All Progressives Congress, is at the front burner of our discussions this morning. And we have with us in the studio two gentlemen. I don't know why they're always men, but two gentlemen this morning to, help dice the matter. We have with us Ibrahim Modibo, who is a party stalwart of the APC, that's the All Progressives Congress, and also a political analyst. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much, Maupe.
And sitting right next to him is Mr. Muazu Magaji, who is a former member of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily as well.
Thanks for having me.
So we saw that surprise list. I don't know whether it was a surprise schedule that was released. I don't know whether it came as a surprise to you gentlemen as well. But it looks like the sale of forms have about to begin tomorrow. And I don't know, was this predicted? Did you think it was going to come upon you like a thief in the night? This day of, let's say, the schedule.
The schedules of the
Yes.
state congresses?
Yes, indeed.
Well, obviously, we are in a transition. And the transition means that we have to fill all the vacant positions of the party positions from ward level all the way to national. And there were a lot of issues related to the legality, illegality, or the timetable, the process, the timing. But we have to do it. And we have to do it before the year runs out. So for me, it's a bit of a surprise because there were no speculations, there were no rumors, there were no leakages, and it came out, bam. And this is the most strategic step towards consolidating the party and basically coordinating it for another success in coming election. We get this right, we will get the next election right.
Do you think that a surprise sometimes helps the process of transparency?
Well, it does. It goes a long way to help the process. And I want to state here that without any fear of contradiction, APC is on the line of transition, moving from the caretaker committeeship to a full-blown executive of the party in the country. You see, we are trying to put in a formidable structure based on the democratic process or norms of democracy, where the party stalwarts, supporters, and our stakeholders have a say in democratic governance. That is why you find out that in all the congresses so far done, the ward and the local government congresses, it has been very peaceful. If I were to score it, I'll give it about 98 to 99%. Although you know for sure that a political party is not like a mosque or a church, where you have the imam or the chief priest at the helm of affairs with people sitting down to listen to sermons without any opposition. There must be rancorous this is because of the interest. And you see, this party is as vital, and it's as virile as a stallion. That's why you see people coming in.
In spite of that, 90%, a lot of people will say is rather generous, especially when you consider the number of states. I mean, if you had said 75%, I would have said, well, perhaps. I mean, if you were to look at it in terms of how many states had rancor vis-a-vis how many were peaceful, some might say maybe you could be correct, but 90 is rather on the high side when you look at the number of states. I mean, look at this. We understand that it didn't hold in some states, and some states had a lot of rancor. I'm trying to look for the states now. Osun, Kwara, Enugu, Oyo, Ondo, Zamfara. This is a state, even Delta. And even in some places, recently the Kaduna elections, local government elections were just concluded. And speaking with the governor of the state on the new process that was adopted there, seeing that wards were lost to the opposition party in the state, he says he believes it's a fallout of the congresses. The people were not happy with imposition of candidates. So if you say that it was peaceful, maybe at some level it was, but at the grassroots, in some places, it was, a fight to the finish. And in some places, they have still not finished the fight. I don't know. Are you very confident going into the state congresses in this state? Let me ask you, Mr. Magaji.
Well, I will rather err on the side of caution. I will say that I will give the process 60%, to be honest, because this is my reason. there are states that have surfaced with their challenges and problems. I mean, we just finished listening to Kano, and you haven't even mentioned Kano in your list.
Indeed.
And there are a lot of issues that have been buried. So there are some silence that are silence of the graveyard. And it is very important that we understand that the transition, it's also generational. And if you look at the young people that are talking on TV about most of the issues, they are much younger than the old generations of APC members. So if we don't recognize that there is a transition of time and age in our party, and the need to refresh the party and give new players more dynamism, then we will only go through the motion of replacing people with old ideas and with the same team, basically not exciting the population that will vote for us. This is my problem. At local government level, what I have come to understand was that most of this process were stage managed. And if you try to stage manage democracy, it will boomerang when you come to face the real election with opposition members. That is not to say the other parties don't have their own problem, but you don't gauge your success by a problem. You gauge your success by a standard. This democracy have a rule of the game. And the rule says that it's not an aristocratic institution where you inherit positions. Neither is it meant to be an appointment, nor an imposition. So most of the processes going on are patching up our challenges. And my fear is, by the time we've finished, and then many of our stakeholders realize they do not have a space, there will be a serious outcome that may not be very good for our party. The other thing I also noticed is that there is a generational discussion around 1999 politicians who were basically transitional politicians from the military who are still in the party. Then 2009 politicians who emerged after the 2 terms of the first set of politicians. Then 2019. There are 3 generations of political actors in our party. And we need to decide who are going to excite the base. This is democracy. We are talking about election here. We're not talking about favors or giving people privilege or position.
You've made reference to those who might be left out in the cold after this process is over. Wouldn't they accept it anyway if the process was seen to be free and fair and that, you know, they lost out fairly?
So that is the challenge of democracy. It is the process that guarantees stability of the party as an institution. And I can tell you, a lot of the things going on at state level now are not fairly and equitably carried out. If you read all the complaints of all these warring functions, there is always a major political player who have total control of the party, who will say, this is what I want, or this is who I want. The unfortunate part of our party transition was that it started as a progressive party, as a challenge to a party that dominated the polity and deciding what they want to achieve in a manner that is undemocratic. We gained the confidence of the general public and got into power after several attempts. We got into power through a merger of progressive elements in the polity. And today, I can tell you, we are almost copying exactly the process that led to the fall of the other party. And I think that is not good. I need to say this very clearly. We need to change the way we produce our leaders in a fair, open, transparent, and democratic manner.
Let me quickly ask you, sir, do you agree with him first?
Well, you see, I always concur with the philosophical details of Marcus Aurelius, who stated, that philosopher and also a Roman emperor, who stated that the opinion of 10,000 men might not be of any significance, inasmuch as none of them knows the subject. In this case, I want to believe that as a researcher, I went into research as part of the research team, or I am part of the research team that have been monitoring the events of the APC since the congresses have begun. In fact, even from the beginning, when there has been this rancorous adventure within the party on the kind of interpretation of the courts, how it's going to fare under the caretaker committee and what have you. Now, you see, the issue of this accord or concord, or the issue of allowing people to go and sort themselves out and come out with candidates is a very fundamental issue in democracy. Agreed. The democracy entails going out to vote and be voted for. But in a situation where Democrats within a particular party, not outside, will sit down and iron out their issues based on consensus, it's a very wonderful idea, very novel, very wonderful idea, because it tries to safeguard the party against
So
schisms.
if they agree on consensus candidates,
Yes.
and you've said that there's nothing wrong with that,
Yes.
why can't they ratify it through an election? To say, you know, even if it was just a ceremonial election, if you understand what I mean.
Yes.
We have agreed that this is the person that we will present, or this is the person that is the candidate of, you know, going to be the candidate at our level. To ratify this, let us all come forward and vote for this singular person. What's wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. But you see, the APC as a political party is very open, very transparent in its undoings. That is why it has set up these committees, you know, of these committees that has to inquire, you know, look at the issues dispassionately and then try to mediate in areas where there's crisis. The appeal committee. So therefore, with what is happening today, I can assure you, in a political party is a normal thing. The process of having internal party mechanism for resolving conflict is where the APC has an edge. And therefore, we strongly believe that yes, there are all brigades in the party that started politicking from 1999. There are some that came in 2019. And also now the young breeds who are very desperate in trying to capture power, whether by any means. They're also there. And all of them, they have the fundamental right to acquire, to go to seek for power. Therefore, it is a normal tradition in any political party. It's a normal thing for people to hustle because these are issues based on interest. In politicking, interest is very paramount and very fundamental. And therefore, we believe that in APC as a political party, we have that internal mechanism for conflict resolution. And I think all these things are normal. There is no party in the world over, that you don't find this kind of recurrent situation where people will protest. It is not a mosque, as I've said, or a church, where people will not protest. It's a political party, and it's all about interest. Therefore, we strongly believe that with time, these problems will come to be healed, and in this circumstance...
With time?
Yes.
Well, it has not always shown that, I mean, that hasn't always been the case. I mean, if your colleague here is already saying that, you know, the signs that we're seeing within the APC were the signs we saw in the PDP, which eventually led to its, you know, breaking up well, not breaking up, but the problems that saw it out of power. You know, and you already seen the same signs in your own political party. Shouldn't you be careful? Shouldn't you be afraid and see how you can, you know, guard against this and perhaps a difficult path, but the path of democracy, true democracy, where the system will really throw up, you know, those who are popular amongst the party and those who will carry the base?
If you look at Magwe, on daily basis, we've been having converts from the PDP and other parties into APC. Why? Because they've seen the light at the end of the tunnel.
The PDP too has been having converts.
Yes, no, but if you look at the torrents, the kind of influx of people from the PDP, never in the history of modern democracy have we seen such torrents, such, you know, movement of people from one political party en masse to another. And therefore, we strongly believe that this is a party to beat. In the next election, I can assure you, Mwakwe, take me for my words, that the APC is a formidable political party, despite these rancors, which is a normal tradition in politicking. I strongly believe that. Look, because there has been rancor, does it mean that we are going to abandon the party or we are going to scatter? It's not going to be. We are looking forward to a formidable party that is likely to rule this country for the next 10, 20, or 30 years.
We've seen how Ranka cost you the ticket in Zamfara, how you won elections there, and how eventually, because of the divisions, the ticket was given to the opposition. In Rivers State, you couldn't field a candidate to the 2019 elections. These are critical, let's say, solid examples of what rancor within the political party has cost you. You have not been able to, mend fences in such a way that you were even able to put forward a common front. Political interest was not even able to, come together, coalesce, so to speak, to, put forward a common front. And yet you say that as you go into and you're seeing more rancor, you are very confident that, magically it will seem, you're almost seeming to want to paper over the cracks as you go into the state congresses.
Mark, let me assure you, during the time of Adams Oshimole, there has been this, tight-fisted and, so to say, democracy based on this kind of hard tackles, so to say.
You want to blame it on the past chairman now?
Of course. You see, the leadership of a party determines the outcome. Now we have Mai Malabuni, a grassroots mobilizer, a liberal Democrat, and also a Democrat of conscience that has been able to move out to get a lot of people into this party. As of today, maybe in the next 1 year or so, this party will also be overblown. We might also not even need people because we'll be satisfied that we have a lot to win any election.
Okay.
And therefore...
Well, the people that you're winning into the party are also a cause of concern. We see what is also happening in Zamfara right now.
We will tackle it.
Okay.
I promise you that APC is a world party. We have internal party mechanism of conflict resolution.
My colleague always says that politicians are forever optimistic. So let us see. I mean, you said we will tackle it. But
yes,
let me ask you, how big a stabilization force would you say that President Muhammadu Buhari has been on your party? And, do you fear that as you go into the elections in 2023, not having him on the ballot could negatively impact the unity, this, at least the face of unity which you seem to currently enjoy as he's there?
Well, first of all, we need to understand how the party came into being. The party was a merger, and President Muhammadu Buhari brought in 12 million votes. Historically, and other partners brought in their base. Now today we are pretending as if we have that base, and that base of Muhammadu Buhari today has eroded because he has been tested. Usually when you lead people, people have rebuilt their opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people have reviewed their opinion either positively or negatively about President Muhammadu, but he's not contested. I have been to meetings where the vice president, the Senate president, and quite a number of stakeholders warned that without Buhari, this party can collapse. I am not saying we are not making effort to reach out to people. The problem is we are reaching out to very few people who are seen to be the owners of the system. That's not how democracy works. I sat here with my colleague and he's saying young people are desperate to take power anyhow. That is 60% of the population you are talking about. My colleague is saying that the party will overflow and they may not need people. I am afraid that is not very democratic. In a mindset, politics is about addition, not subtraction. All I am saying is the state congresses are the most critical. And look at the danger of what we are actually trying to do. We've gotten to a point where we have a transitional committee. Good people. I've seen many of the members are very good people, but they took a very wrong step at the state level. They dissolved the state ESCO and then returned them as caretaker. And now they are in very firm grip of the party, basically imposing their cronies and their loyalists. And they've been around for a long time that they have gotten powerful, that credible candidates cannot challenge their position. When you say there is a peace or you are resolving your issue and it is normal to have rancor, when you muzzle people and they have no power to challenge you now and you think you are peaceful, I am saying honestly, we should review this strategy. There is a game, there is a rule. We are not going by the rule as at today. We are going by our emotions and our preference, and those preferences are personal. Let me take you to Kaduna, where you mentioned. We should thank El-Rufai for what happened in Kaduna, because he has been able to have the courage to democratically expose himself to a process that revealed our shortcomings in time for us to fix them. We should know that we have been given mandate, and it's an 8-year mandate, and we are more than 6 years into that mandate. We must be able to say, why is Kaduna going that way? Despite all the issues with PDP that we came into, why is Kaduna going that way? And if you go to Kaduna, you will not say El-Rufai is not working. El-Rufai is working, is delivering good things to the people. But there is a political process we are missing here, which is the rule of this game. Scouting for credible, popular candidates and giving them space. Not our cronies, not our boys, not our people. Let me give you an example. In Kano State, where these young men who just appeared on the program were actually complaining or saying they are from a parallel party. I will say to you, the party chairman lost his ward, lost his local government, and lost the metropolitan where we had a problem that led us to inconclusive. And yet, he is still the party chairman today, bringing the same people that he has used to coordinate the election that we lost to put them back at local government level, and then we expect victory. Kano is not just alone in this. Like I said, because these people have been around, the rule of the game in democracy is refreshing the party and refreshing the base.
So you're not confident that somehow, because they always say that somehow politicians are able to pull out a wand, and just when you think, oh, all is going to fall apart, you know, they're able to reach an agreement.
No, there is an agreement between the stakeholders. I have no problem that the crisis management ability of the caretaker committee is excellent, but it is at the very top. And the very top represent only 10% of our party. The problem I am warning here is, because we have run a government, when you actually run a government, when you're coming back to ask for new mandate, what you do is refresh, and you reset, and you re-excite the base. We are basically presenting a group of people that have actually been tested, and the performance, some are good, some are not so good, and because we are in charge and we're in control of the party, we are imposing them on the people. I am saying it's not just about us. It's about the general election where partisan and non-partisan members of our community will decide our fate. If we don't excite the base and we don't refresh our party and we don't create new momentum, then people will say, look, we've tested you. You've done enough. Especially like you said, that most of the support base we have was because of Muhammadu Buhari, especially in the north. And because people feel rightly that they have paid off Muhammadu Buhari, he has 2 terms, he is not contesting again, they have right to shift their loyalty unless we do something different.
Let me say quickly if your colleague agrees with you. Do you agree that President Muhammadu Buhari has been the stabilization force in your party, and that going into the elections, since he's not on the ballot, that could affect your party's chances?
Assuming without necessarily conceding to some of these fundamental flaws, you know, as a result of analysis by political detractors, and also by a section of the media of which I am part of, you know, in trying to make analysis on issues that seem not to be the correct perspective of what is happening. You see, let me tell you one thing, Marwe. President Muhammadu Buhari is a stabilizing factor, whether we like it or not. We are not hoping that President Muhammadu Buhari will die in 2023. Whether we like it or not, he will be there. Even if he's going to hand over, he's going to be on our campaign train, because I have been the National Director of Publicity of APP from 2001 up to 2010. So I can tell you that I have gone to almost everywhere in Nigeria with the president.
So you think
and
that
he still agreed that this country is undergoing some problems.
Sorry, Mr. Modibo, let's throw this conversation now to my colleagues in Lagos. Gentlemen.
All right, gentlemen, let me ask you. Let me start with you, Mr. Mogaji. This Congress across the states, the fact that it's going to hold, because we don't know the way it's going to turn out, to what extent do you think it will go in reconciling those, several blocks in the party?
Well, honestly, that depends largely on how transparent and how credible the process will be allowed to go. I believe that state congresses are very key. In the federation, the states are the major drivers of the politics and the development of the nation. And I believe that it is the right thing to do for APC to subject itself to the process of getting new leaders. The major challenge, as we've been speaking, is how will it go? In what way will the leadership be allowed to emerge? I very much hope that the atmosphere of transparency that will be seen and be perceived to be implemented by people will be the rule of the game. I believe that there are states that have issues that no matter what we do, we will have to come out with some reconciliatory activities after the congresses. But this is what happened with every contest. No matter how any individual assume his or her popularity, when you subject the process to a fair contest, that individual will then realize his or her level of acceptability within the public. And if that person loses in the process, then you do not end up with a challenge or a complaint, because the process is fair and is transparent and it is publicly witnessed. Our party prided itself that we are a public-based progressive party. There were times we were talking about basically carrying out internal primaries through our own internal Congress, through individual members' vote. We have tried that and we have seen the result. There are times when we go into delegate-based election, and then now we are dominantly talking about consensus. You are constraining the choices of people as you progress from an open, transparent choices by individual members to delegate system. And now you are even more constraining from delegate system to a consensus. The problem with this consensus is who are in the room and what criteria are they using to pick the candidates that we all endorse at the end of the process that we present. And what mechanism do we have to feel and to gauge the population that this choice is right? If we don't position all of this in a democratic space, then we will have to face the general public in an election. And most of the time, those aggrieved individuals are the ones that will basically design a failure strategy around our candidates. So my take is this is a very good transitional democratic move by our party, and it will help us exit the crisis of leadership up to the point where we will go into a national Congress and elect the national leaders, and then come out and face the issue of bringing out our candidate for election.
All right, Mr. Modibo.
The golden rule is the game has a rule, and if we don't go by the rule, we will miss the major reason why this is happening.
Okay, let me bring in Mr. Modibo on this.
Invite new members.
Okay, pardon me on this. Let me bring in Mr. Modibo. Well, even though you refer to some of these things as fundamental flaws, but it comes across as though you do not necessarily think that, well, this is so much of a challenge that, the party needs to worry about. Is that right?
You see, Mr. Chamberlain, by nature, I'm an incurable optimist. In whatever I do, maybe it's because of my experience in politics. I've been there since 2001 as a national director of publicity. Let me reiterate again. I know, as a matter of democratic principles, norms, and what have you, a political party is never a mosque or a church where people just follow what the priest says. It is a market square. And therefore, the more the merrier. And this is the beauty of democracy. I want to tell you, without any fear of contradiction, that the processes of which we're undertaking now is okay. With time, with these panels, appeal panels and what have you, we also have people of conscience and wedding. APC is never lacking in men and women of valor and candor that have been so perfect, they have had that experience of real democratic, putting in democratic structures for conformity with global trend of democracy. And therefore, I want to assure you that in spite of all these problems that we've had here and there, or we're having here and there, with the internal party mechanism of conflict resolution, I can tell you that give us time, we'll sit down, we'll resolve our problems, whatever it is. Joy is better than war. Therefore, we believe as Democrats, as progressives, this issue of consensus, to me, it is a bridge building mechanism because it helps in avoiding a lot of rancor. Agreed that some people will definitely, because of interest, will definitely feel bad, in the process of trying to get power. But we have to look at the national interest and the party interest. What are we looking at? Under the present circumstances, Nigeria, under the APC, is a formidable political party that is out to give dividend of democracy to Nigerians. We've seen so far how this government have been doing, in spite of all the political and economic problems that have confronted this country. We've been trying to see how we could assist in at least tackling the security problem, looking at corruption and also laying fundamentals on the issue of putting in infrastructure in the country. Agreed, people have been having problems in Nigeria, but we want to appeal. We want to also tell Nigerians that we're really sorry that some hardships are there under our party, but these hardships are sacrifices that are meant to cushion the effect of hardship in due course. These are sacrifices that Nigerians will put in for the betterment of society in due course. Honestly and sincerely, all the network of roads, all the social infrastructure, in due course will see the benefit. And therefore, now, as we move into the phases of these congresses, APC as a political party, under Mayamala Buni, as a caretaker committee chairman, has been putting in place square pegs in square holes. He has been trying to see the possibilities of bringing in consensus, bridging consensus so that the old brigades and the new ones will come to be harmonized. I can tell you that indeed we are going to look at this issue from a very wider perspective. Let us not narrow our gauge towards
Mr. Modibo,
the current situation. Whatever rises up will come down, except age. And therefore,
clearly,
we believe that party democracy, whatever rancorous situation we find ourselves in, we have
Mr.
the
Modibo,
internal party mechanism of resolving these conflicts, and also we will make this democracy work. And by the grace of God, I want to contest elections. But under the present circumstances, as we find ourselves, I am a Democrat and I'm a loyalist of the party. I will never say something bad against my party for the purpose of maybe playing to the gallery.
And I think this
is that
Mr.
we should look at
this is probably part of
the politicking of Nigeria or politicking of the APC from the viewpoint of a party that is moving ahead of its time. It's a party that is trying to make formidable input.
Mr. Modibo, if I could just come in now, I think this is at the core of a conversation, perhaps.
If they don't see anything
Mr. Modibo, if you can hear me, I think you've touched on a point that is perhaps at the core of a conversation. I mean, who is the party? I mean, if you say that the leadership has ensured that round pegs have been put in round holes, and I mean, you have people at the grassroots who form the base of the party, who disagree, who say, well, this is not how we think things should go. You then wonder, who do you define as a party? Is a party the leadership? Is it the followership, or is it the convergence of both? Big question. But let me take this back to Mr. Magaji to respond to some of the things you raised. So, Mr. Magaji, Mr. Modibo thinks that this, consensus process is meant to be the bridge building mechanism for all the issues we have seen. In fact, your party constitution in Article 20, of course, gives credence to consensus mode of electing people into positions in your party. But you have time and again said that this needs to be democratic. It needs to be transparent. So whose responsibility is it to ensure that this is transparent? At whose table, on whose table is that responsibility to ensure that this is democratic and transparent? Is it the caretaker at the national level? Is it at the state level? Who exactly?
Okay, first of all, there must be people of conscience. I mean, there must be respect for this game. When people attain power, they do not personalize it, and they do not and must not perpetuate in that position because they came in through the same democratic principles that other people allowed to manifest. The problem we have today is that when people get into power in a democratic manner, because people recognize their potential and they brought them on board through a process, then they jettison the process and they start bringing on board people who they prefer personally or they want to favor. The mechanism of checking that in our party is what I am highlighting is missing, especially at state level. And because we are going into state congresses, it is very likely that we will suffer from that perpetuation of people in power and imposition of their preferred candidates without very clearly defined criteria. Who can prevent that? Like I said, the National Caretaker Committee are people whom I have known personally. They have their capacity, but this is not personal. If you personalize this process, you're missing the point. This is institutional. If the rule of the game is not clearly spelled out, as you said, consensus is part of it, how is the consensus derived? How is it achieved? Who are involved? What is their allegiance and interest? I have said this before. There are people who lost election totally, and they are still given the driving seat of our party to take us to where? To another loss? This is what I think the National Caretaker Committee should be very careful about. The best way to gauge the pedigree of a politician is his or her past election records. I don't have any personal agenda around this issue.
So in other words,
two things. One, popular politicians who have won election time and time again, we know them. We know people who have people. And the second one is to open up this party for younger elements who are vibrant, passionate, and very patriotic to come into our party so that they will bring their young colleagues who represent greater majority of the voting population.
In other words,
I have had this over and over
Mr. Magiji, just a moment. Pardon me. Pardon me. In other words, you're saying, for that first point, you're saying that maybe state executives that did not win elections or have not had good track record in terms of winning elections should be put aside, and the ones that have perhaps a good track record or a good followership should be made leaders. Am I right?
Right, because why are you changing leaders? The reason the party constitution provides a period where you go look for leaders is because you want to refresh the interest of the public on the party.
But aren't they meant to be,
test a leader,
Mr. Magiji, aren't they meant to be elected as well? Wouldn't that be an imposition? Aren't they meant to be elected as well? So if you're saying set aside the ones that have not won elections, bring in the ones that have, at least that have a good track record. I mean, they're meant to go through elections. Wouldn't that be some sort of imposition? I mean, back to square one, which you're complaining about?
You have said. I've said there are three methods of producing leaders: the Congress of the members, the delegate election, and the consensus. I am saying if you are going through consensus, I bet you if you subject these leaders to election, they will lose because they lost before. So it's already fait accompli. So I'm saying if you're going to do a consensus and you're sitting in a room on behalf of the members of the party, then you should look for the pedigree and track record of the individual you are bringing as leaders. You do not bring a person who loses election and say, I would like this person to rule the party. On whose behalf and for what reason? He has lost before, and the people have complained over and over again. I have seen this in many states. I've read this in many states. I have had this from many members that These people are just basically putting people who serve their own personal interest. And that is what I am warning here. We are at a point where we have to tell ourselves the truth, because if we don't, I don't want in due course that my good friend here keeps saying we will solve our problem. I want it solved, in the process minimize. It's a democratic process, there will always be issues, but when the process is transparent, when the issues come out, even the complainant can judge for himself.
All right, let me bring him in.
She lost the election.
All right.
All I am saying is, this is a golden moment for APC. We have had Buhari and Tinubu, who have merged together, who have brought their political pedigree of winning election and won the election of 2015 and 2019. We now have to look for people who are capable of winning election again, who are popular, who respect democracy, who can deliver the dividend of this democracy. Because the second thing is not just the process of getting into this office, but also what will the people do? Do they have the capacity? Do they have the knowledge? Do they have the passion? Do they have the empathy for the people, so that they can get more support when they hold offices?
All right, let me bring in Mr. Modibo on this. Mr. Mazu, we'll get your point, though. Let me turn to Mr. Modibo and ask him. Now, you know, after that judgment, the Supreme Court judgments for the Ondo State governorship elections, there were different schools of thought as to what should happen moving forward. For instance, one of the senior lawyers in your party, who is at the ministerial level, did suggest that the party needed to sack Buni and every other person holding executive office and immediately suspend the planned congresses, because if they continue, it may not just, you know, turn out well for the party. What do you think about that school of thought?
Thank you very much for that wonderful question, Mr. Chamberlain. But before I go to that question, let me state here that I always rely on the philosophical details of Joseph Santayana, that famous historian and philosopher, who says, if experience is not retained, infancy is always perpetual. Those that fail to remember the past are doomed to repeat it. Therefore, I cannot remember in the history of this country, since the APC came on board, when we've lost election. We've all won our 2 elections. So I don't know from which basis Mr. Mazu is talking about these people losing elections. From which viewpoint? We won 2015, we won 2019. So on which basis is he talking that we have people that currently, that are currently spearheading the operational possibility, the operational details of the party as of now that have failed? They have not failed. Have you ever seen a child passing exams and you want him to repeat the class? If I have the latitude, those people that have been tested and trusted must be given the possibilities with possible infusion of the new people, because these young boys or young ones that are trying to come, they don't have the experience. They don't have the political expediency. But we had people that are there that could be fused together with the new ones so as to make a formidable front to move forward. Now, let me come to a point. In this analysis of the silk, Festus Keyamo, who is a minister in the government, I think, to me, and this is my personal opinion, I strongly believe that his input was brought out of genuine concern for the party. And I think we have to consider the issues he has raised. I also believe that those in opposition that also stated that what he said couldn't have been the truth should also be looked at. All of them, to me, they all have points. You see, the Nigerian political system, the Nigerian judicial system is in such a way that if you don't test something through the crucible of the networking of the judicial system, you might not be able to get it. All arguments canvassed. The Festus Keyamo argument that has been canvassed, I think it has some merits. The opposition that has also stated, canvassed against Keyamo's analysis also have credit. To me, it has to be tested in a court of law, because the law is an ass. And therefore, if you don't test, the advocacy matters. If Festus Keyamo goes to court tomorrow and gives background, gives advocacy, convinces the judge on the potency of his submission, He may likely win the case.
Why does he want to? Why would he want to do that? I mean,
no. I'm just giving an example. Just an example.
I'm there. I'm also trying to, you know.
Yes, no, he wouldn't do that. But what I'm saying,
why would he want to do that? What he's saying is take heed from the ruling of the Supreme Court on a particular matter, and that's his own legal advice. And it seems that
you see,
people are asking him to go to court to test it.
No, he wouldn't have gone to court. Oh, I'm only giving an example. I am not saying he will go to court. What I'm saying is, if there is any analysis or anything, it has to be tested in a court of law. If it's not tested,
do you really want to take that risk?
No. What we're saying in this circumstance is, Festus Keyamo has merit. The other group too, they have their own merit. This is my personal opinion, and therefore the need for our party to sit down and look at the two issues from a very open and pragmatic perspective. We have an open mind to study the two situations and come to a consensus. I believe that in a democracy, I always repeat, consensus is very important, because I know the dangers associated with going into a field as a divided house. A divided house is bound to fail, it's bound to collapse.
No,
and therefore...
The opposite of consensus is not division.
No, of course.
That's not the opposite. I mean,
No.
because you said that you believe in consensus, and then, you know, instead of going into something with a divided house. The opposite of consensus is not division. The opposite of consensus is that we vote. That's what it is.
No, I disagree with you, Mawe. Consensus building presupposes. Go and look at it from a different perspective. I'm coming. Let me learn. Consensus building presupposes that there is harmony. There's peaceful coexistence. There is that networking.
I agree completely.
Good.
There is
So
consensus building, but
yes.
when you talk about a consensus candidate,
yes,
that's a different.
So what is the difference?
That's a different kettle of fish.
It's all consensus and consensus.
No.
So what are you talking about?
You have to. In some instances, you must vote for that candidate to turn up. You don't think so?
No, it's not necessary.
So you're against democracy, even though you talk about consensus in a democracy?
I believe in consensus, Markwe.
What exactly, what then is a democracy to you?
Excuse me.
No, let me
consensus
finish.
doesn't mean voting.
What is a democracy to you?
Democracy is all about mass participation of people in electoral process to bring democrats online.
Mass participation?
Yes.
How?
Government of the people, for the people, and by the people.
How do these people come about?
Good. The issue is, if we're talking about consensus, it's a natural building mechanism within a polity. It's part of the game, Mark. Whether we like it or not, consensus presupposes that people will come and sit down, whether they vote or not, if they agree.
Do you know why?
If there is total agreement that, look, we want this person, it's consensus.
I'm chuckling because there are Democrats who exactly do not like elections.
It's a normal thing.
You strike me as a Democrat who doesn't like elections.
No, I like elections. I believe that's why I'm putting myself forward to contest elections. I'm not afraid of elections, but let me tell you.
But you don't like internal party elections?
There is no politician that is not afraid of elections, including even the president himself. Because you are not sure where it goes.
That's what I'm saying. So isn't that what really makes a Democrat a Democrat?
That is
that you're able to face the fear of elections that you have and say, despite the fear that I have, I still put forward myself for these elections.
You see, under this circumstance, Mark, what we're saying is, if you cannot get consensus, go and do elections. You vote. What we're saying, we're bringing ourselves out for elections. We're not afraid of elections because we've been there, we've been seasoned, we've been tested and trusted in elections, and therefore we're not afraid. But the only thing
I'm not talking about you.
What I'm talking about,
party.
APC.
I'm talking, and you just said that there's no Democrat who's not afraid of elections.
Of course.
Let me quickly ask Mr. Mwazu's closing comment on this one as we wrap up now. This sale of forms have already begun, and you're going to go to this in October. How confident are you that some of the rancor will be resolved before October?
It will not be resolved before October, but it can be resolved through the process. There is one line in that statement that was released by APC Secretary. He said that the sale of forms commences on the 5th, that's tomorrow, and any candidate who is denied a form at state level should come to the national headquarters to purchase his form. This is absolutely amazing because it opens up the avenue for the national headquarters to see the issues we are discussing now. There will be many candidates that would be denied the ability to get a form, much less to contest this election.
Will you be buying a form?
I am not contesting for the state party chairman. I'm contesting something else in the state.
Okay. What about you?
Well, I'm putting myself forward to contest elections at the national level. And I strongly believe I have what it takes.
I was just asking if you're buying a
Yes,
form
no, no.
for the state congresses.
I have what it takes in the APC because I have been there right from the time of APP, NPP.
But you,
as a loyal party man.
Will you back down if the process now comes to elections, or would you want them to do it through consensus?
No, if there is consensus building mechanism, so be it. I'll be ready to submit that because I'll be ready to submit myself because I am a Democrat. First and foremost, and also a loyal party, a loyalist of the party. Whatever the consensus building mechanism dictates, I'll be ready to comply.
All right, we'll see how it eventually goes. As you rightly heard, sale of forms opens tomorrow ahead of the congresses, the state congresses, sometime in October. Gentlemen, we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Ibrahim Modibo is a stalwart of the All Progressives Congress and also a political analyst. And we also have had Muazu Magaji, who is a former member of the All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council. Once again, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.